Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovation Show. It is a show with a guest this week. This is a topic that, when I got pitched this particular guest, was really intriguing for me. It is in the area of innovations to address stuttering. For those that are stutterers, are there technologies, are there innovations that they can find helpful, beneficial? And so this was a pitch that I got from a PR firm about an application called BeneTalk. And its founder and CEO is Jordi Fernandez, and Jordi is our guest for today's show. And I also invited Tara Rael, who is the president and CEO for Hacking Autism. Tara is a speech-language pathologist, has a lot more expertise in stuttering and speech-language than I do. And for those of you who've been longtime listeners, Tara has been on the show many times. You will also know that Tara is my oldest daughter. Her specialty is in autism and executive functioning skills, but she also has expertise as a speech-language pathologist, and in particular contributed in the conversation today, specifically around stuttering. And this topic today, we talked about a wide range of things: the history of how Jordi developed the app. He is someone who stutters, and starting when he was 6, and then he talks about when he was 12 and really becoming aware that he stuttered, and how he went through his process, and then the development of the app. So I think from that standpoint, it's just interesting about the spark of an idea for a challenge that he was having personally, and what the role of technology could be to support it. So all in all, I think the conversation went extremely well. At the end of the conversation, warning, the show's a little bit longer than normal, but this one of the topics that we got kind of off onto a rabbit trail on was the challenge of funding. This is almost like orphan drugs that are aimed at niches of markets where the market may not be big enough to support the development of these technologies and the support of these innovations. So take a listen, and if you have an interest, or you think you might have a contribution to make, whether that be skills, expertise, money, to BeneTalk, we will have all that information in the show notes. So please just stick it through to the end. I think it also opens up potentially a topic for an upcoming show about how do you fund social innovations that'll have a social impact, not an economic return. And how do you think about social innovation and the funding of that? So we talk about that at the end of the show. So before we jump into this week's episode, got that favor to ask: follow, like, and share. You're probably getting tired of me using those same 3 terms. Follow us on social media, like the show, give us a feedback, give us a thumbs up, wherever it is you get your podcast, and then share it. Share it with others. Share the entire show, the link to the note page, wherever you want to get your podcast. I also would encourage you to go check out theinnovators.network, where you can get all of my content, my podcasts, and all of my writings now are available over at theinnovators.network, the Innovation Journalism Newsroom, and check that out. But again, share. Let other people know about the great content that we're trying to produce for you. If you find it useful, somebody that would benefit from it, would greatly appreciate you sharing it. And with that, let's jump in to this week's episode. So Jordi, give us a little bit of background on where the idea came from for this application.
So I am a person who stutters, so I think that the idea came to solve my own problems. So I went to many speech therapists, since I was a child. Stuttering starts around 5 years old, and then continue for most of people. And at 12 years old or so, it becomes chronic. So I went to many speech therapists in Spain because I was from Spain. And then I moved to UK and I went to one therapy program that it changed my life. Basically, it really helped me. And this one, what it had different from the other therapy programs that it was focusing on practicing on the real world, not in the clinic. So you just stop speaking people in the street. You just ask directions to people. And we used to speak with 100 people in 1 hour. And then also there was a community. So a community because most of people who stutter grew up being the only person who stutters. So that was blow my mind. So the fact that I could practice outside with a community of people that were like me, so it changed my life. But also I saw that none of this was rocket science. So it was just going outside and speaking with people. And then it was just meeting other people who were like me. So that is the idea I came from. So why we cannot build a device that it can help you to build these habits, expand your comfort zones, and also to connect with other people around the world.
So in your case, as you were describing it, the therapy in Spain for stutterers was purely clinical. But the UK, it was really about getting you almost like outside your comfort zone, putting you out into the world to work it.
Right, but I don't think that this was a case of UK. So it's a case of being lucky. And I found a program, particularly actually this program started in the US. Well, I started in Holland, then also expanded in the US. So it's a program run by people who stutter, not run by speech therapists. But that is not the point. The point is that it's more focused about community and about expanding the comfort zone. So the fact that I didn't find anything useful when I was younger was the fact that there is no a gold standard. There is nothing that in a stutter that says, well, you have a stutter, you have to do X, Y, and Z. No, there is nothing like that. So depending the country that you go, there is a condition. So they treat you in a certain way, depending even the street that you cross. It treats you in a different way too. So this is actually one of the main problems that we face, right? Building the solution that we build, because we go to the users and we ask them, what do you want? Of course, I want to stutter less. This is what they say. I go to the speech therapist and I say, what should I do? Well, I don't know, because everyone is different. And then of course, we do what we can by trial and error, right? So this is the main challenging thing, I think.
So is it okay? So Tara, you're gonna have to help me. You're educating me as I'm the third person on the wheel here, right? You know, Jordi, you're a user having gone through this experience. Tara, you're a speech language pathologist, right? I'm the novice here. We're clearly outside my comfort zone. Is it really that different that everybody who stutters is there's no gold? I mean, how?
Because a lot of the thing is, so we have a lot of different milestones that we have to watch for just legally with our certification when it comes to fluency. So a lot of kids will have disfluencies very young in age, but for a lot of speech therapists, we actually cannot start services. We're not supposed to start services until they've had a certain amount of time of disfluency, because kids, as they're learning language, they naturally will be disfluent as they're learning language. But if it lasts longer than 6 months, that's when families need to start seeking help and seeking intervention. And the problem is we have, like we do, I feel like in a lot of the therapy worlds, we've got a lot of therapists who come from a lot of different directions. And especially depending too on what countries you're coming from, there's different levels of education to become a speech language pathologist. And you're also influenced with who's teaching you at the university level. For example, I had the super huge benefit of my professor was actually a board certified fluency specialist. That's like all he did when he taught stuttering at the university. That was his specialty, which is a lot different than I found a lot of my counterparts had, who you have to have a course in stuttering. So whichever professor they can shove into that peg to teach that class teaches it. not necessarily a passion for them. And then there's a lot of different approaches, and it's actually pretty contentious at times as to which approaches are being taken, because some believe, especially with younger kids, you should not name it, you shouldn't address it head on, you should do all these gentle around the edges approaches of let's practice smooth speech and let's practice bumpy speech and not give it a name. Whereas I have very close family members who have had disfluencies, and the success for them has happened with nope, we're hitting this head on. Hey, did you hear that? We're going to work on that today. Let's see if we can make that speech smooth. And it also really depends on the experiences they've had. Have they been in the public school already when their disfluencies happen, and have they been bullied because of it? How's their family handled it? How has their religious community or even their cultural community handled those moments of stuttering and those disfluencies that they're having and those experiences? Stuttering isn't just about stuttering. There's a huge emotional component to it too, as to the experiences they've had, the successes they've had, the bullying, the not successful moments they've had, that really then impact how it's going to be approached for each person too.
So Jordi, in your case, talk about, because you started in Spain, but then like you said, you were lucky to find a speech therapist, and then you developed this app around a community. What's the role of the community in encouraging and supporting those that stutter?
Yeah, so the community have two main components. One is it teach you stuff, right? So it's about education. So it teach you to know that the stuttering is not a problem. It's the relationship that you have with stuttering. Then it teach you fluency techniques. So, for instance, now I guess that people cannot see the video, but the app is tracking me in real time, my speech rate, and it's giving me feedback and audio feedback and visual and audio feedback. So, and then once you also learn some techniques, the problem is that we want to feel normal, right? So people want to feel always normal. So when you learn a speech technique, the speech technique gives you something which is not normal in you, right? So you just want to be your own. You don't want to sound someone else. And you will say, well, but it's better to speak fluent than to speak with a stutter. But the problem that we face is that for many people who stutter, stutter is not visible. It's actually invisible. Many people hide it. Mm-hmm. So, and that is actually a very painful moment when you hide it and you just suddenly you start stuttering and other people say, what is happening here? So there is we say the elephant in the room, right? So because of this fact that we actually are having something which is not visible and impermanent, we never manage to accept. So we don't accept it, and we always try to hide it. What I'm trying to say here now is that when you use speech techniques, you are using something that is not you, and when you have a community, it helps you basically to realize that first of all, you can use speech techniques, but most importantly, it's okay to stutter. So the way that I actually say always is that what I believe, because I also learned this in this program, is the solution. Well, I don't want to think about the solution for stuttering because it's not about fixing things, but to have less anxiety and less stress, rather than chasing fluency, is the opposite. You have to change stuttering. So, embrace stuttering. So when you embrace stuttering, then what happens? Fluency happens as a byproduct. So how do you embrace something that you are running away from the whole life? So it's a very thing to do. So it's a very hard thing to do. So this is a very hard thing to do from a speech therapist point of view, and it's a very hard thing to do from a software point of view. But I think if you combine both, you have a better outcome. So the community is helping you to realize that it's okay to stutter. There is many successful people in the world. I'm talking with people who stutter, and the more that you stutter, the more pressure, the less pressure you have. So we built in our app, I guess that you are familiar with Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So we built like a similar thing within the Clubhouse where people can talk inside. And also we have a mentoring system where people who are very active can actually mentor others. And of course we have like a kind of Facebook thing. But this important thing here is I don't want to write. So change only happens by action. So all the features that we build are about speaking. And in fact, our North Star metric, how we track usage and how we know that our app gets better is because we track time spoken, with the app. So I mean, when I started, actually, I didn't thought on having an app. I wanted to have a hardware device who it was detecting you speaking in the same way that a Fitbit does for walking. So it has a Fitbit for speech. We don't care about whether you're stuttering or not. We only care about whether you speak or not, because many people who stutter, they don't talk, right? And that is the main problem. Many people, I know people who's married for some years, and they told the wife one day, I am a person who stutters. So what are you talking about? I mean, it's something that many people is actually hidden. There is some now research in the UK that shows that 2% of the population stutters, which is the double almost of what it has been said, and it's mainly because it's hidden. So I just lost the plot now. What I was talking about?
You talk about the hidden, the fact that the people keep it hidden. 2% of the people in the UK are stutterers, and,
right?
And it is interesting, right? Because there's a senior executive, kind of my age, who very influential senior executive for a CEO for a major corporation, and he's a stutterer, right? And when you're in a meeting with him, he will, he'll start to stutter and he catches himself, but everybody in the room who's spent any time with him knows he's a stutterer, but nobody makes a big deal out of it. But I do worry about, the kids, or there's a lot of organizations that are, I don't know, insensitive or not understanding. And so part of hopefully of today is to help some people understand, the challenges and the fact that you may not know someone's a stutterer because they're hiding it so well, you don't even know, but it's a struggle for them.
It's a huge area that's kind of taking off. We're kind of a small subset of the therapy world, but I'm part of a huge growing group of therapists who are really attacking what we're calling masking head on. And I feel like it's impacting a lot of different aspects that are typically fall within the realm of speech therapy, where whether it's speech therapists needing to learn that what they're doing is teaching masking and hiding their true selves, or whether it's really, as Dad was saying, the community around them, which has inadvertently influenced this masking of hiding true selves in order to fit into whatever that culture, that community is deemed normal. And, we're really pushing for a lot of research in this area because we really believe there's a huge mental health impact when somebody can't be themselves, whether it's stuttering or whether it's something else, the dangers of masking versus the amazing healing that can happen just from first being able to accept yourself and then also be into a community that 110% accepts you as you are.
So Jordi, is everybody in the community someone who stutters, or is the community who's in the community? When you say community on from the app experience, who makes up that community?
So of course we have a team of people who actually are the one who's pushing the community. But what is interesting is that some people, they actually took some roles, so users basically, right? Took some roles and they are actually helping basically to run the community. But at the same time, we also are in early days, right? Mm-hmm. So we actually ran a study now where we show that our app is 10 hours of speech therapy is equivalent of 10 hours of using our app. When you compare with an assessment, of course, the more hours that you have, the better the quality of life improvement. But those people who are engaged with community have a higher quality of life improvement. So, which is what actually, which I was expecting. But I wanted to touch your point that you mentioned that it has a massive impact in children. So, what is very interesting is I don't have any memories of myself stuttering until 12 years old or so. And I have videos from my father when I was a child, and I was stuttering. So my point is that there was not a problem. So there is no problem with stuttering. So in fact, you mentioned that you know a senior person who stutters. Well, many people stutters, but it's not a problem for them. If I have this assumption that if the parents have been, if the family has been loved this child a lot, there is no problem. Right. My parents love me, sure, but they also try to fix the problem, right? So what it means is that so stuttering is not a problem, but we saw it different, and then we want to fix it, and then this creates anxiety. So, in my opinion, we as people who stutter, each time that we stutter, we feel like we make people down. And this goes when you're a child, so when you start to become a teenager and goes older. And yeah, it's something that it has to be reversed. And most importantly, it's a chronic condition. So, so yeah, it's a chronic condition. And I guess that the main problem also that we want to address here is that there is so many studies. Most of the studies in the world, or most of the data in the world come from the US, actually. And there is a lot of data there, right, that you can extract. We were talking about before this meeting that you have 81%, right, from unemployment from people with autism. I don't know if there is a data of this on stuttering, but for sure, if there is somewhere, it's in the US, that data. The only thing that we know is that people who stutter, they earn, in average, less than $7,000 a year. And of course, they have 60% social anxiety disorder. So 60% of them have social anxiety disorder versus the 4%, which is the general population. So, yeah, so there is a big component about mental health there. And the important thing here is that it has to be managed for life, right? And there is some studies in the US that shows that 84% of the people who stutter relapse at some point. So, which means to me, in other words, that 14% of people who find therapy find it useful in the long term, because at some point they relapse, so it's not useful. So this is where our technology can kick in, right? So it's about support for the whole life, right? Without expensive one-to-one therapy. Not that we want to take out of the job the speech language therapists. Okay, so that is not the truth. The truth is that there is no support for a chronic condition for life. Yeah.
I'm surprised by the statistics, right? So you're talking about someone who stutters. Did I hear it right? That they make $7,000 per year. Is that right?
They do less, so they earn less. So they have $7,000 less per year.
$7,000 less per year. Wow. That is surprising. And then the social anxiety piece, right, is also, right, because, and like you said, you didn't think of yourself as a stutterer until you were 12, and then it was then you become pretty self-aware at that point, right? And so it builds up the
it's just when people start to bully you, and when you start seeing things. I remember when I was a child, and I think that this is, if someone hear this podcast and is a person who stutters, the most horror thing that you have in childhood is when you have to read in class, and you count how many tables you are going to read this bit now and the problem is that stuttering is that you don't know. They actually there is a very good one key opinion leader in the US about the stuttering, which is called Scott Yarus, who he called that. Don't know if this will be here for children. I mean, I don't know if this podcast will be heard by children, but it's called the oh shit moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know whether we stutter or not, and there is 1 millisecond before that we know that we are going to stutter. On that, so that this is what he called the oh shit moment, and in that moment, just before you are changing words. So it's not enough that what you have to say. You need to think in a word that you can say. So people are very good at that. In fact, Joe Biden, your president, he's a person who stuttered. He don't say publicly that he has stuttered. He say that he had stuttered. But we people who stutter can catch people who stutter easily. And I can see videos that he changed words very good. So he's very good at changing words, right? And for sure, people which very good at talking, they can actually manage this maybe very well. But for most of us, this causes anxiety, right? So we don't know, as I used to say, it's like living in a minefield. So you never know when it's going to happen, particularly during an interview, right? Or during a date or during a presentation
Yeah, it is, and I never had thought about the teacher calling on children to read and creating kind of that, I'm going to get called on literally right before you have to chain the words together. That's
and also it was also, how many times I say that I didn't do the homeworks, but I did the homeworks, but they asked me, what is the answer? And I said, don't know, because I could not say, because I didn't want to talk. And here is the important point here. So we are people who stutter, right? But I grew up confused and I didn't know what to do. My parents were more confused even because they didn't know how to fix it. And my teachers, they were also very, very confused. So we are not building an app for teachers yet. So this is something that we had not thought. But yeah, so we are building an app for parents now. Because we think that the parents have a massive, I guess that you should know that better than me, but the parents have a massive impact, right? In how
they have a massive impact. And even if, I know we were talking before we even started, Jordi, we were talking about how as SLPs, we can't even, we've got all these timelines, right? We're not even allowed to start working until we're sure it's not developmental stuttering, until we're sure that, this kid is, okay, now we are a person who stutters. We've kind of crossed that line, those pieces and stuff. And that's usually, as a mom, as an SLP, as a member of my community, I'm in all the Facebook groups and everything. And the first thing I'm sending is like lists, from the Stuttering Foundation and stuff like that, as to really how huge of an impact parents have, not on causing their kid to stutter, but on their reaction to the stuttering and their acceptance of the child. And they're learning to talk slower, to give time for question and answers, to not, drill with questions, give an option for giving an answer, all these pieces to really help the child not build that anxiety, because so often it's the parent is feeling anxious and they're inadvertently, not intentionally, with no at all desire for ill effects, putting that anxiety on their child by giving what sounds like good advice, but it was bad advice, and working up the stress around the stuttering rather than like, we're all okay with this. This is all right. Like,
actually, I mean, you actually mentioned the word accepting. I don't like the word accepting. I would prefer a word, I would like to call it the opposite, which is embrace stuttering. Because accepting looks like something that bad, that you have to accept it, because not something. But the embrace is like, it's a clear action. So And this will be for parents too. So there is no problem here. There is no problem. The problem is the faces that I put because I suffer, and then the faces that you put me back because you see me that I suffer. So it's a loop here, right? What is happening? So the more that you smile, the less suffering of faces and the happier the people, right?
So Jordi, you held it up here we're on the Zoom call. You showed us the app. Talk us through quickly how someone uses the app and how it helps them.
So I will explain maybe better what I had in mind and what is happening now.
Okay.
So as I said, we were building a Fitbit for a speech, right? So I wanted to build the hardware, and the hardware, you could use it every day and it would be detecting you all the time. So it was a device that you put in your chest and it was hearing you during the day and will give you haptic feedback. But of course, COVID kicked in. So it was, as you know, building everything is hard, but building hardware is harder. So we actually decided to move to an app, and it was the best decision that we could do because it's almost doing what we intended. So I am using my Zoom calls, and I am actually it's very easily to be deployed, right? Everyone have a smartphone, so it was a good decision. So in a way, COVID brought us a lot of good things in that terms. So the person download the app. So we actually separate the user in two, basically. The users are our personas in two. People who had previous speech therapy, so we call it expert users. People who they are completely lost and they don't know what to do. So obviously, most of our users are those people who are completely lost. But of course, our retention and our features, which are simpler now, they actually are more useful for those who had experience like me, right? So we had some courses. So once you download the app, you have an assessment. It gives you the impact of stuttering that you have in your life. It's actually a real assessment that the speech and language therapy uses. And then we have some courses. And then, of course, they give you haptic feedback in some real-time speak techniques. And, of course, and then you have the community bit to embrace this. Now, I mean, we have started like 1 year and a half ago, right? So this is still a long way to go. Because for those who are completely lost in stuttering, which actually is 60% of our user base and 60% of our users in the US too. So meaning that, I mean, everyone, so there should be less people who is lost, right? In a country like India, right? That perhaps has actually less speech language therapists, but we see the same level of users that are lost in all the countries. So you're right. So what happened is the community is the key, but here is the tricky bit, which is what you want is sometimes not what is good for you, and this happened to all the areas in our life, right? So we want something, but is this thing good for you? So if you ask me 20 years ago, what do you want? I want fluency, and I want not to stutter. And I don't want to deal with anyone who stutters either, because I have enough with my own problems. When I see someone else who stutters, I change my street. And this is what I did all my life. But what happened is when I went to this program, I was being forced to that community of people. And it happened that it was what it has to happen to me to do a change. So my point is that many people are scared, right? The social anxiety kicks in and they are not ready to go to the community. So we need to improve the user journey. We are doing this we are building a personalized therapy within the app based on all the data from our user base and with AI, right? So what works for whom, and recommend content based on users' profiles. But we have not started this yet. So we actually are closing a funding round now. We just won a loan, a grant from Innovating UK, and we are actually closing a round 2. So if there is any investor in this call, so please let me know.
And you were talking about the fact that you're working on how do you support the parents. So how would that work? How would that work for the parents then in the future? I know it's not in the app today, but it's where you're going.
Yeah, so we are building a separate app for that. So the important thing here is that speech language therapists, many speech language therapists, they, as we say, there is no gold standard, right, for stuttering, and therefore everyone believes what the best that works, right, for them. And also speech therapy, I am not saying that is one of them, but most of speech language therapists that we know, they don't like technology much. At least the people that we talk in the UK. But all of them have something in common. Everyone says that the parents suffer, and there is something. So there is a big gap there, and there is no a truth, a good source of info for parents. So we believe that the adoption of our solutions will be faster if we actually building a product for parents, because our solution at the moment can work with the speech language therapist, because of course the problem is that there is not enough support in the whole world. So, but we also want the speech language therapist to embrace our product, and until we don't have a lot of research studies, right, it's difficult. But an app for parents is easier. It's easier. At least this is what we found. It's an app for parents to help the children.
Yep. So how many users do you have on the app today?
So we have around 2,000 monthly active users from 100. Well, in general, we have users from 165 countries.
Wow.
But we changed a bit now our strategy, and the reason being is because there is no a digital health solution that focuses in a niche area, which is doing great, selling directly to consumers. So most of the digital therapeutics apps, they are focusing in B2B reimbursement. So via schools, or in the US, insurance companies,
right,
or in Europe will be the health systems. And the reason being is because the cost per acquisition is actually quite high for the marketing when you are actually targeting a very small niche.
Right.
So if someone knows a solution that is doing good for a niche group, I mean, stuttering is between 1 to 2%. Please tell me. But I couldn't find anyone, so we decided now to move towards a more evidence-based solution. So our goal is to become an evidence-based solution for digital therapeutics to tackle stuttering in the whole world.
Well, it's interesting because you raised an important issue. So Kim McNicholas and Tara knows Kim. Kim has a show called The Heart of Innovation, and it's all about healthcare. And it's one of the biggest challenges when you look at innovators, particularly the challenge in the U.S. innovators who are creating phenomenal technologies in the healthcare industry, but because of the way reimbursement happens in the US, the challenge to get reimbursement, the challenge to get support for that, to get it accepted, to get it, quote, prescribed. We see it, Kim sees it all the time across all the healthcare technologies she tracks. She was involved in actually creating videos to help a company that was building a product that would identify clots in your legs that would lead to amputation. And it was basically using a kind of ultrasound that had been around for 30 years, but because it was going in a new area, getting it through the government, getting it through the insurance companies, getting all the studies done, it was a very long effort. It probably took, 6-7 years before they got the approval to go on for the reimbursements. And that's a US thing. And then we run into it with the nonprofit that Tara and I run. You hear all these stories of these parents who, the amount of money they spend for the therapy, for the for their kids in whatever condition, right? Because of lack of reimbursement, the cost of the therapy, the cost of technologies, and there's not a great mechanism, one, to encourage the developers, right? Companies like yours, you need to make money so you can reinvest it to continue to enhance the application. Where's the market? How do you find that market? How do you get compensated for that effort? How do you build upon it so that you have an ongoing ability to enhance and improve and make the product better for the community that you want to serve?
It's hard. And I think that the only answer is through grants.
There actually is a big effort in nonprofit innovation, right? So it is about, grants and those types of things. And in fact, what we do through the nonprofit that we run is we don't do technology development. We're not building the apps. Money that we get that are donated to us, we actually give to the companies and to the third parties to help fund them, right? No equity required. But we are simply a funding mechanism to try to encourage others. We just did with an organization that does training for job placements. How do you build skills in the tradecraft area for people that, in our case, we focus on autism. And so there's a new organization. We've been really impressed with them. We decided to give them one of our grants to help fund the work that they're doing because they're making great progress. And we've chosen to do that because we see this funding gap between the innovators who are really creating great solutions in the traditional market. There's a gap, and there's a real need for a funding model to innovate in these areas that can have huge impact on people's lives. But you got to think about it differently.
Yeah, and actually the most important, so the problem is the investors don't invest in R&D or in something that is still not proven, right? So,
traditional investors don't, right? And in fact, here in Colorado, there was an organization that I was involved with as a mentor even back when I was at HP, called the Unreasonable Institute, and it was all about social innovation. So what we would call social investors. Social investors are those who are investing not because they want to return. They're not looking to get 3 to 5 times their money in 5 to 7 years, the typical venture capitalist or whatever. They're looking to fund for downstream impact. They want to see it have an impact on other people's lives.
Well, I really could not find anyone in Europe, well, at least, what I found is a lot of impact investors that they say, yes, we are an impact investor, but it's a lie.
Well, you've got to be a little careful because some of them will say they want to do the impact, but then they say, I don't want 3 to 5 times my money. I'll be happy with 2 times my money. That's the problem, because then you're making different kind of decisions. So the challenge you have is one that I see, and maybe this, now that I'm thinking about this, we've had this little side conversation on this is maybe this is a future episode of the show to talk about how do you fund, what should be a funding mechanism for social innovations that's truly social impact, not quote impact investing where you want the return, but truly, right? I mean, look,
Yeah. So now actually, I mean, in the UK, I mean, something I didn't mention, our company. So we are based in the UK, and actually something which I didn't mention, which I should mention now, is that tomorrow is the Stuttering Awareness Day. So 22nd of October. So that's why I think that I am here, right? But I didn't mention this yet. Right. So, but yeah, so Innovate UK have a system. So they are doing an experiment. So UK is doing an experiment which is giving loans with a very low interest during 7 years, and we just won one. Well, we are in the due diligence basically of one. And I think that it's a great scheme because it's not as difficult as the grants, and of course, but the due diligence we have not passed yet. The due diligence, but yeah, this is the main. Honestly, if you ask me what is the hardest thing for me as an entrepreneur, is to raise funding and pay people, particularly during these times, right?
Right.
Don't know how it is in the US. So I guess that is the same, right? But yeah, so all investors have cut down everything. So
yeah, everything in the US is with the uncertainty of the economy on the global scale, the willingness to take risk on investments is definitely pulled back. But again, I also think that this is something that requires a different kind of thought process of. Not on your side. You identified you innovated to solve something that you yourself personally experienced, and you saw a path to help other people. Now the question is how do people come alongside you to support your effort and to fund what it is you're doing? And so with that, we're like way over the normal length of the show, which is fine. But Jordi, I wanted to give you an opportunity. If people want to contact you, if they're interested in what you're doing, maybe, who knows, maybe somebody on the show says, hey, I'm interested in maybe, helping out, with, money or funding or something. What is the way that they can track what you're doing, and two, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So I guess that the easy way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn, but of course also through email. So my email is Jordi, is J for Juliet, O for Oscar, R for Romeo, D for Denmark, I for Indigo, at BeneTalk.com. So yeah, so you can also find me on LinkedIn or send me an email. So we are now, as I mentioned, closing a funding round to complement a loan that we are going to win. And yeah, so if anyone is interested, but also I am very keen to hear of any advisors. I'm looking for increasing the board, our board, with people with experience in digital therapeutics and evidence-based products.
Great. And so we'll put all those links in the show notes. So hop on over to killerinnovations.com. We'll have all this so you can reach out and connect with Jordi, and we'll have links to the website so you can check out the BeneTalk app. I know Tara's checked it out. Tara's also had conversations with other SLPs about your app, so the word's already getting out in the SLP community. Jordi, thanks a lot for coming on the show today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Tara, as always, thanks for hopping in and providing the level of expertise that I obviously do not have in this space.
Not a problem.
Great. Thanks. And thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you.
So when you think about social innovation to have impact, innovations to change society. What are your thoughts about the funding mechanism? It's a challenge. Tara is the president and CEO of Hacking Autism. I am the chairman of Hacking Autism. It's a nonprofit that actually started its work when I was CTO at Hewlett Packard, and we've kept that going. So we're probably now in our 13th, 14th year of Hacking Autism, and we struggle with it. We raise money and we fund others. We fund those that are doing kind of these niche solutions, but specifically for autism. What other funding mechanisms are out there? Join into the conversation. Hop on over to killerinnovations.com. Post a comment on the bottom of the show notes if you've got ideas, or hop on over to the innovators.network. Find this particular episode over there, and you can start a conversation also there. Be interested in your thoughts if you've got any ideas. Also, if you have a personal interest, maybe this is a topic of high importance to you, and you've got something you can offer Jordi and the team at BeneTalk, I would encourage you to go find them, reach out to them, check them out, help them, support them. That would be absolutely fantastic. If you do reach out to Jordi, let him know that you are a friend and a listener of the show, just to let him know where the connection is coming from. As we wrap up this week's show, again, thank you for your time. This show, I know, was a little bit longer than normal, but I felt that the topic and what Jordi was sharing was important. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up, get off the end of the show here, because I know you'll probably be way past your normal commute drive to wherever you are going today, and you're listening to this. I do appreciate the time. I do appreciate you hanging in there for an extra long show. And with that, stay tuned. We will be back next week with a new episode. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.